My name is Alistair Taylor. I'm one of the vice presidents for my sins of the society this year. And this evening we have a lecture, our November public lecture, by Chris. Before the lecture gets underway, David, the secretary, has a few announcements to make.
Now, I've had a bad cold on and off for the last 2 weeks. Like many of you might have had it as well, so I just hope my voice is up to this. Okay, there's a few events taking place. We have a couple of nights at Acre Road Observatory. The first one is on Thursday, 1st of December. The second one is the week after, the 8th of December. The evening of the 1st of December is also the beginners group, the monthly beginners group. The subject for this month will be the moon, and that's run by Chris and Lorna, and it runs from 7:30 to 9 p.m. That's both Acre Road nights. The next event is the Observers Group, the monthly Observers Group, which takes place on Monday the 4th of December, which is run by Robert.
Sunday the 4th.
Sunday the 4th, yeah, Sunday the 4th of December, run by Robert. This is a Zoom meeting, and the details and a link will be sent out near the time. Still no word about the Irish Group yet, Alistair? No.
No, it's technically planned, but an announcement will be sent out closer to the time.
Okay. I've got a couple of quick announcements. Membership subs, Ewan is here tonight, and he's brought some clothes with him, just in case. We also have calendars for sale as well, £10 each. Bob?
Yes, still have a few excellent calendars left.
I've just got one final announcement. I had been hoping to hear by now from Dr. Luke Daly. As you know, he had to cancel tonight's meeting due to being involved in a research project. I was hoping he would have been able to confirm that he would be able to present the February talk, but I'm still to hear from him. I contacted him a couple of times, so, but hopefully he will get in touch soon. And that's all I said.
Thank you. I'm sure we'll be able to find a replacement for Luke as necessary. So, this evening, you may see this recording at a later date, or you may even be watching it live on YouTube. We're trying our hand at live streaming these events as a hybrid setting. And our guinea pig for this very first trial is our president and a member of society for multiple decades, and a long-standing or upstanding member of society, Chris McCain, who is kindly agreed to talk to us about the pharaohs and the stars.
Thank you. Should get some light then. Get me a rid of that. Get rid of that. How about that?
Oh, I maybe tell the last one of them. Turn them all off.
Well, either books, and we've been to Egypt before. Looks at all, quite a couple of people here for it. And we do astronomy. I'm not a professional, so I'm stuck in the middle. I've given this talk to Egyptology societies, and I've given this talk to the Astronomical Society, including the late Professor John Brown, whose last advice to me was get it out there, and to get this thing out there. So, to tell you how it started, at the end of Science Festival in 1996, I bumped into an author called Robert Boval. I don't know if anybody's heard of him, but he's the man responsible for coming up with this Orion correlation theory, which is an ongoing dispute. Basically, the three pyramidal views are somehow aligned with the belt star of Orion. I didn't get into that, but what happened was we got into a discussion about astronomy. Professor Archie Boy was involved in the show as well. And basically, I ended up in Egypt. So in September 96, I ended up in Egypt. Said we would look into this astronomy, and I'd never thought about it before. The next talk, the Pharaoh decided the red planet Mars, because Mars is coming to opposition. Egypt's very popular at the moment because we're looking at the 100th anniversary of the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb, and also the 200th anniversary of Champollion's cracking of the hieroglyphs. So that's when we start to find things out 200 years ago. Going to Egypt today, some shots I took from Giza Plateau. What struck me immediately was when you look at Egypt today, you're looking at what's left. You look at the ruins. Everybody's had a piece of it. Romans, Syrians, everybody's had a bit. It's going to come tourists today. So you're looking at what's left. However, this is the view from Pizza Hut. Standing there with a French student eating pizza, watching the sunset behind the pyramids. I thought, who's this weird? And here's a view from the south looking north. You very seldom see it unless you're looking at this, but you can see over there you've got the suburbs of Cairo. It's right on the doorstep of Cairo. Beyond that, you're into desert. And then you get a lot, as I said, from Pizza Hut, you get a lovely view of the window. You can sense it. And as I said, you're looking at the ruins of Egypt, you're looking at what's left. You're looking at what's left of a civilization that lasted for 3,000 years. And we're still trying to figure it out today. This is the statue of Ramses the Great. This is broken in half, possibly by an earthquake. The whole statue weighed almost 1,000 tons. Nobody's been able to shift it, it's still sitting there. And that was the inspiration for Shelley's poem, Look Upon My Works, Ye Mighty in Despair. Was Ramses the Great did things in style. He was known as the Great Builder. So all started way down here. The Nile, it's just important at the Nile. I mean, if I wanted to say that the Nile, I mean, basically it's a gift. But basically what happened in high summer, you've got Ethiopian snows melting, you've got water from the lakes, Victoria and Tana, and flowing down the river and towards the Mediterranean. And there's a view from the space shuttle actually, and you look at it, basically you've got a couple of miles either side of the Nile and you're into deserts. So that river is vitally important. And it fans out into the delta up here in the Mediterranean. The actual shape of the Nile is the shape of a lotus, which is symbol for Egypt. Now when they get started, look at that, but when they got started, we're still discussing this, arguing about how it happened, but basically it seems once the desert used to be savanna, going back maybe 8,000, 10,000 years ago, and when it dried up, groups of people migrated towards the Nile. And they started off at a place called Horakhti. This is where they started to build the foundations of Egypt, the city of the Falcon. And pretty soon they came up with all these gods. They had over 200 gods, but they had a foundation of gods called the Ennead. And they had Atum. Atum is basically the creative god. He sneezed, and out of that came Shu and Tefnut, that's moisture and air. And then Geb and Nut came along, Geb being the earth and Nut being the sky, like this. And then they gave birth to Osiris and Isis and Set and Nephis, basically the brother and sister. And after a big debacle, which we'll get into, the story of Isis and Osiris and Horus. Horus basically is the son of Isis and Osiris, and he became the true king of Egypt. And every pharaoh thereafter, following this myth, is a Horus king. So Horus plays a very important role. Here's the trio here. Horus, the falcon-headed man, and he's wearing the white crown, the red crown, Upper Egypt, Lower Egypt. Here's Osiris, who's dressed up as a mummy, and he holds in his hands a crook and a flail. And these are the instruments of animal husbandry, but they're also symbols of kingship. The message that the king is giving out when he holds these things is basically he's in charge of supply. He's the top man. And here's Isis, Horus. So, all this business, if you think about how a civilization starts, and they're just sitting in the desert, and one guy says to the other, how will start civilization? Before you know it, within a few hundred years, they've got all these gods, they've got a system of kingship, they've got a rule of law, they end up with a unified state, north and south of Egypt, and they're doing pretty well. But a question pops up in my mind. Now, I'm here tonight on behalf of all the stupid people. I'm going to be asking stupid questions, but I don't want to hear stupid answers. So the first question is up to, who told this guy he could be a king? What is a pharaoh anyways? Well, turns out a pharaoh basically is a guy who is in charge of nature, in charge of the whole show. He's there to prevent chaos. He is in charge of the order, right? In fact, there's a third dynasty pharaoh, Sneferu, who got known for building pyramids. He was known as the Lord of World Order. And this order that we talk about is a god called Mat. And this is the natural order. So anyway, who gives me permission? So you can imagine this, suspend this, disbelief for a moment. The lads that call this were driving around the Giza Plateau at the time of building the pyramids. And they see this going on, they say, hang on a minute, who's in charge of it? What's going on here? I need permission to do this. I said, well, put that guy over there, he's the pharaoh, he's Gaffer. He says, look, you're a pharaoh, right? So he told you to do this. He said, Horus told me. He says, Horus, he's a god. So does he look like a falcon? Right. So what are they on about? Who is this Horus guy? Right. Well, the guy that we are interested in tonight, never Horus, but the one that we're interested in is a god called Horus of the horizon. He comes out as Horakhti. Now, there's different spellings of it. It can be Horakhti, it can be Horakhti. There's different ways of spelling it, but it comes down to the same thing. He is the god of kingship. Out of a pantheon of over 200 gods, there's only one god that gives the king his divine right to be king, and it's this god here, Horakhti. What is it? Sometimes referred to as Raharakti, a double act. Tom and Jerry, Simon and Garfunkel, or sometimes it's just called Simon. Huh? So he's a double act. Sometimes he's just Horakhti, sometimes called Horus of the two horizons. He's a dweller in the horizon, hangs about in the horizon. Horus of the Dead, which is the old town name for Edfu, in up in Egypt, where they built the temple of Horus. And he's also known as the Lord of Heaven. Now that's a good job. How did you get that job? How did you get the title Lord of Heaven? Did you have t-shirts printed? That's the next stupid question. And you find this name all over Egypt. You find it on monuments, you find it on stela, you find it in obelisks. This one in Paris. It came from Luxor. And basically it's dedicated by Ramses the Great to Horakhti, who made him a great king. And the tomb of Horus is down, way down the hill, Egypt, as they call it, at 25 degrees north, thereabouts. And that's a view from the outside of the tomb. And we'll come back to that. Inside the temple, here's me with the granite falcon that sits at the gate. Very impressive. Now, we know that these temples had an astronomical function. We know there's a lot of astronomy to in this, because from even the second dynasty, there's evidence, well preserved, of a ceremony called the stretching of the cord. And what the pharaoh would do is he would turn up at a site where they want to build a temple, and he would turn up with a woman posing as a goddess called Shesat. And what they do, basically she's wearing a funny instrument on her head here. She's wearing this 7-pointed leaf star type object, and there's 6 cow horns over the top here too. They both have a cord, they both have a hole, and they have a cord between it. And the king situates himself in the south and looks north towards Sheshat, looking through this instrument here. He's looking towards the northern stars. And eventually find the position and they mark it down with chalk, and that becomes the central line, the axis on which they build the temple around. Now, I also know that in the afterlife beliefs, that astronomy is involved too, because we find the oldest religious text in the world written on the Pyramid of Unas and several other pyramids from the 5th and 6th dynasty. That's after they built the Great Pyramid, after the 4th dynasty. And they didn't put anything on. You look at the pyramids in Giza, there's nothing written on the walls. You go into the 5th and 6th dynasty tombs, the pyramids in Saqqara, and you'll find these religions. And what they are basically a series of chants and spells and hymns, and a guide for the spirit of the dead king to eternal life in the afterlife. And they're highly astronomical. So we know that although we're finding these things in the 5th dynasty, we know that they are older, and much older. They're there right at the start of the Egyptian civilization. They turned up with these ideas of life, death, resurrection, eternal life, etc. And you'll find it later on in the Middle Kingdom in the coffin texts, and these same kind of texts in the coffin, and the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the Papyrus of Ami, the Dead Man's Book. And it's basically, again, an adaptation of the pyramid text. The same theme runs through the text, with other changes in the stories. And also in some of their tombs, we find that they're highly decorated with astronomical ceilings. And here's this goddess Nut. Basically, she swallows the sun and the stars up in the west, and they're born in the east. So the gods, they say, are born in the east. And here is a king-like character here, wearing the crown, he's carrying the staff, and he's sailing across the sky, and the background of stars on a boat. And a whole line of astronomical gods here, There's also we know the process of mummification for living bodies took 70 days. For 30 days they would dry it out on a salt table. Then they would remove the organs and they would embalm the body, put the organs in jars, canopic jars, what have you. And at the end of that 70 days, they would have what they call the opening of the mouth ceremony, where the next person in line to be king, basically the king's son, they have dressed the king, the dead body up as a mummy, and the king comes as Horus, the representative Horus, and with a small axe, splits open the mouth of the mummy, and basically lets the spirit out to the stars. This was called the opening of the mouth ceremony. I'll come back to that later. 70 days it takes. Here's King I coming to split the mouth of Tutankhamun. Here he is dressed up as a mummy. Now, what they reckon here is that they dressed him up as an Osiris. The Osiris god, he started out as the original king of Egypt. And it seemed that they all had a splendid time until his jealous brother Seth murdered him, cut him into something like 14 pieces and spread them all over Egypt. So then his sister wife Isis had to find the body bits and put it together, the first mummy, and bring him back to life long enough to conceive a son. And that son became Horus, who went on to avenge his father. Then Osiris became the king of the dead. He's basically the king of the afterlife. And his son Horus ruled the earth. So what I reckon they're doing when they see Osiris. So the king does it all for Horus, and the Horus that grants him his divine right to be king is called Horakhti. He's the god of kingship. So the bishop is the representative of Horakhti. No Horakhti, no king, no Egypt. The role of Horakhti is absolutely essential. Without it, there's no Egypt. So how did the astronomy work? These are some illustrations on what we found in the astronomical tombs. We're looking at some of it. We have identified some of these characters. That's their constellations. Not that constellations being, but there is one or two that are familiar. So how did they refer to astronomy? When we read the text, things that they wrote about their astronomical observations, it's not much different from what we do today. If you're going out with your telescope, you want a good view south. Because over on your left-hand side, over in the east, you're going to see the stars rising up. I'm going to get to the highest point in the south, and I'm going to go down in the west. So the Egyptians directed themselves south. They also drew their maps looking south. And they would say that in reference to, this is in reference to Orion, the group of stars called Saturn will come to later, as Orion. It says you go up on your left side, you rise in the east. You go down on your right side. So they had a left side of the sky and a right side of the sky. That's east and west. Also, they had the imperishable stars, which were the normal stars, because they just go round and round. And you can imagine, if you're thinking about an afterlife, wouldn't it be wonderful if you could be a normal star and live forever, eternal? You never set, you're there every night. They don't go away. So they'll be eternal stars, imperishable stars. And we do know that, as I said, we tried to identify some of the constellations. There's I can't remember the name of this creature now, but it's part crocodile and part hippopotamus. And that represents the constellation Draco. And this character hangs on to basically the plough. It's called the four-leg of the bull. It's an astronomical constellation called Mesquichu, the four-leg of the bull. That plays a very important role, especially in temple foundation. And the king is looking towards the northern stars, the reckon he's looking towards the plough. And the Egyptian calendar was all a bit funny, but they had 3 seasons: Akhet, Pelet, Shamu, basically the inundation and the planting season and the harvest season. And 4 months to a season and a 30-day month. And they had 3 10-day weeks in a month. Why 10? Well, I think 10 is easy to count. So you get, So that gives you 36 groups of stars rising at 10-day intervals. What they were looking for was they were looking at stars, initially they were looking at stars that were transiting, and then they changed that in the Middle Kingdom to stars that were rising. And they had these groups at 10-day intervals of stars, starting with Sirius, which is the brightest star in the sky. And they had these called decans, 36 groups. Brings you to 360 days. Now, if you're the priest that's watching this stuff, well, the first 10, after 36 groups, you're almost back to where you started. The Sirius hasn't appeared there. If you wait another 5 days, you're back to where you started. And it's the 5 days of 1 year, called the Pagan of days. Basically, that's a new year. It's party time. Well, that's those 5 days, everybody went up to temples and they had a right good party. Now, here's an attempt to photograph the heliacal rising of Sirius. The Egyptian New Year starts at the heliacal rising of Sirius. What that means is it's the first appearance after its disappearance. As it disappeared in the spring, and it comes back in the late summer, late spring, and back in the late summer. So we're looking about August, in fact, I built on this was the 8th of September. And this photograph is taken from a place called Kingsbars, over in Fife. Not far from St Andrews. St Andrews is about 5 miles north. So we're looking out over the North Sea. As you see up in the corner, here's Orion. Orion's up, pointing towards Sirius here. And what's of interest here is this bright area here. This is an area that the ancient Egyptians called the Duat. And basically, it's out here they're looking for the first appearance of stars. Looking for stars coming out of the Duat, which is related to the underworld. Its more recent translation from Dr. Bill Manley at Glasgow University is place of adoration. And it's also a place where the gods are born. And this is pretty much a typical scene you see in the new year. And watch for the first appearance of this star. And why that was important was it happened near the summer solstice. And shortly after, the Nile would flood. All this rich organic salt and water and what have you come down the Nile, and that would give them the material for planting their crops later on. So it was vital. That was the start of the inundation. And Sirius was the marker for that. Here's a heliacal rising of Sirius that happened recently on the 1st of August, and this is based in Giza. Well, I know this is in Giza. And we use a program called Stellarium here. Basically, we've got a farm here, but just about see it on the horizon here. You've got the glow of dawn coming on over here. Orion's already out of the Duat. He's been up for about a week or so. When it comes to Egyptian astronomy, who can we consult? Who are the experts in Egyptian astronomy? Well, it turns out not that many. It all starts with Napoleon and his scientific expedition. If we ignore what the Greeks said back in the Ptolemaic times, if we ignore what Herodotus said, what have you, but the first modern approach to studying astronomy happened with Napoleon's expedition. Ellipsis was one of his scientists who led the expedition. So in 1820, they started to realise there's astronomy in these tombs, there's astronomy in these temples. And then Bruce came along in 1840, a German philologist, and basically he figured out a few things, and basically he cracked the planets, he identified the planets right away. And he was followed by Lockyer. Norman Lockyer was the astronomer of Scotland way back in 1880, and he spent a lot of time at temples looking at alignments. And of course, once Champollion had cracked the hieroglyphic text, they could start to understand what they were saying in these texts. Budge was a keeper of antiquities at the British Museum, and he also got into the fray, because it was pretty clear that astronomy was involved. And Mercer helped establish the Oriental Institute, Chicago University, so he was equivalent of Budge in the UK here. But the guys that are top of the pops are Nugebert and Parker. That's Otto Nugebert and Richard Parker. Otto Nugebert was an Austrian who fled from Germany just when the Nazis came to power, and he went to America. And he came to Britain for a short time. And Richard Parker was an American astronomer at Brown University. They both did their studies at Brown University, but they spent 20 years studying astronomical texts. And we're not talking about mythical texts or religious texts, we're talking about astronomical texts. So they spent 20 years doing that, and what they were trying to do was to identify constellations, stars, etc. And they are revered by Egyptologists and considered the authorities on the subject of archaeoastronomy, at least in the identification of Egyptian constellations and stars. Now, that was pretty much the situation. Nugebert and Parker published 3 volumes called the Egyptian Astronomical Texts back in 1969, 1970. And they're well sought after, they're very hard to get, they haven't been published since. Very few universities have them. Fortunately, the University of Glasgow has a set. And the last time I saw them on eBay, they were going for $3.5 grand. They desperately need to be republished because every student needs access to these. It's not all doom and gloom, unfortunately, because back in 2003, the Egyptian Antiquities Authorities commissioned the Spanish Archaeological Expedition to look at temples and other astronomical items. They studied over 330 temples, and they published a book on it, a collection of papers, in search of the cosmic order, and it really is good. It's bang up to date, it's the latest thinking. Not everything in Egyptian astronomy is a settled matter. So we're still arguing about some of these things, but they put forward some very good cases for and against some of the ideas that we've had over the past 100 years. So that's available again, that's about £35 or £40. That is available. I do have a copy. Now, here's Otto Nugebert at St Andrews University when he turned up for a mathematics colloquium. And there he is, sitting in there. Yes. With Richard Parker. He and Richard Parker are famous for cracking the calendars of Egypt, which we're still arguing about. And I'm taking note of astronomical illustrations and texts and tombs. You've got lists of decans and registers here. You've got, they're trying to identify decans with Sothis and Orion. They've got rows of astronomical characters here, gods, deities. So they're trying to look for this commonality. Because they changed the decan pattern, the way of looking at them, from transiting to rising, there's 36 decans, they all got names, and they realise that the names of the 36 decans don't change, even though they're transiting and rising. So they kind of get that down, we've got an idea of what these groups of stars are, and they're below the ecliptic, what we call the decanal belt. So basically they're looking for identities here, and pretty quickly they identify Orion and they identify Sirius. You know, it's not until the Greeks turn up that we get any kind of clue about what the Egyptians are doing with astronomy, because the Greeks turn up and they identify things right away. So there's a star called, there's two decans, Sopdu and Sahu, they're right next to each other. Rising 10 days for 10 days for Sahu, 10 days for Sopdu. And this Sirius is identified as a star called Sopdet, and the decan Sopdu. And therefore, the Greeks identify it right away. What it is, it's Sopdet, that's Sirius. And therefore, they identify Sahu, that rises before Sirius, as Orion. It's the only group of stars that fits the pattern. So you've got Sirius, Sopdet, and Orion is Sahu. And Ptolemaic astronomer, as I said in the Greek term, Ptolemaic astronomer Horakhti wrote down, watching his observations, it says Sahu rises before Sopdet in the order of Mat. Remember we're talking about Mat as a divine order, as a natural law, for which they use to guide their society. And that's true, Orion rises about an hour before Sirius. So the divine order is the order in which the stars rise. This world order that people go on about, it comes from here. It's nothing but, standing on the earth watching the stars go by. And also there's a big feature of the stars on the south and the stars on the north, because from the very beginning there was factional societies. It was in the south of Egypt and the north of Egypt were at war, and they were united by a king, Menes, who basically brought the society together and created the first state. And that was what was important about Egypt. So in the south we've got Sahu as Orion, and we've got the Draco as this hippopotamus crocodile character, holding the foreleg of a bull, which we pretty certain is the plough, because it looks like the plough. Now, we talk about this business of heliacal rising before the sunrise, but we've also got a chronicle settings to consider. And basically what's happening, if you're watching Orion, as we know it's a winter constellation, and it disappears mid-April, gets swallowed up, doesn't come back till late summer, thereabouts. You're looking west, if you're watching this group of stars, these decans, they'll eventually be swallowed up by the light of the sun, and they'll disappear. And that's a recent one. He disappeared on 29, just about getting washed out by the light of the sun on 29th of April this year. Here's a photograph I taken some years ago trying to capture this. We've actually got Orion being swallowed up in here. This cast it's Gemini, cast in Pollux, and that might well be Sirius down there. But basically, you can just see these stars being washed out by this glow, right? It's interesting to look at because you basically get red on the horizon. You get this lovely white patch area which graduates towards the blue and finally into the dark blue. So that's what you're looking for. You're looking for stars. You go back the next day, you'll probably find out you can't see that star. It's gone. Why is that? Okay, it's disappeared in the west, and it's not until the Earth moves round in its orbit that it takes 70 days before you see it again in the east. That would be a heliacal rising. It takes 70 days for the Earth to move around the sun so you can see the star again, you can see it in the east. So you last saw it in the west, he died in the west. There's actually a papyrus that talks about that. The burials of men are like the stars when they die in the west, they go into the ground in the west. But they're reborn in the east, they come back again. So, just to prove the point, we got the chronicle setting of Orion, it's sort of been swallowed up by the sun in the west. In the previous shot there, here's a shot I took from the bedroom window. And the problem with the Hawaii horizon of Orion is it happens about 3 in the morning. Sometime, you know, like late July, mid-August. And, well, you've got to get up. That's the bottom line. But I didn't do that. I just set the camera up the window on a cable release and sat. That's it, went back to bed. So then you have to get up into that. So I used the top of the tree here just to point out you've got Orion's belt here, and you can see the glow of dawn here, the duat, right? That area of light. Now, a few days you'll be up into the dark here, again in the dark, and that's it coming back from the winter. And it's another full shot from Kingsland again. You see he's already out in the duat, and Sirius is coming up behind him, not long far out, a few days. That's it coming back into action for the winter. 90% mummification. The body died out for 30 days, then it's embalmed, etc. Takes 70 days. At the end of the 70 days, the open mouth, release the spirit for the stars. 70 days. Same thing that the astronomy does. The stars die, they come back in 70 days. They die in the west and reborn in the east. They're basically born again. That's where that phrase comes from. So, okay, the Hawaiian rising of Sirius is something that will happen every year. Now, they're still arguing about the calendar because they didn't fix their calendar to 365 and a quarter days. They were told religiously to stick to 365 days, so they let the days, the names of the days just drift around the calendar. However, in reality, for agriculture, you've got to stick to the stars. So, the Hawaiian horizon of Sirius will happen every year, and it's happening around about 24 degrees or so southeast at summer solstice. That'll happen every year. Now, this is from Karnak back in the 18th dynasty, the New Kingdom, just to give you an idea. However, it won't be the same every year. The sky will be slightly different because some years, 24 degrees of east, they'll have planets. So a question popped into my mind. What did the Egyptians think about the planets? So we read a lot of books about Egypt, and we see a lot of programs about Egypt, and never seen anybody talk about planets. Now, they have a civilization that lasted 3,000 years. Can't live in a desert. You not notice the planet. They must have said something about it. Okay. What Parker say about the planets? What did they find from their 20-year study? Remember, they are the authorities on the matter. Well, they found out that the superior outer planets, the visible outer planets, Saturn, star of Saturn, they're looking, as I said, for commonality. They're trying to tie down the names and identities of these things. It says, unlike Jupiter, Saturn keeps its name substantially the same throughout. That means throughout all the texts from Old Kingdom all the way through to the Ptolemaic area. And basically, his name is Horus, ruler of the sky. How about Jupiter? Jupiter, very prominent and bright. You still see that up there tonight. His name is Horus and bounds the two lands, but they all have epithets. They have nicknames, if you like, other descriptive names. Sometimes it's a lone star of the sky. His name is Mystery, Horus, Mystery of the two lands. The point is, it's only the three visible outer planets that get called Horus. And what about Mars? Well, guess what? Scooby-Doo writes all my scripts. I mean, you got a spoiler at the start. Right. So Horakhti is Mars, Horus of the horizon. When I found this out, I thought, I'll tell you a funny story. Out in Egypt with Robert Raval, and we're in the mall across from the Cairo Museum. And it's a big glass pyramid. And we're looking around the tourist shops. And I take a photographer friend out with me, Audrey Thompson, And Robert brought his niece, she was out there too, and there was a few others there. And we got into an argument about the astronomy. And we're looking for a connection between Mars and Egypt. And I'm telling saying, I don't think so. I said, I can't see any connection between Mars and Egypt. Like, quite a heated discussion. And just at that point, Audrey Thompson came up and tapped me on the shoulder and said, Chris, look over there. There's a Shom de Mars pub in the corner. So I'm standing outside the Mars pub in a place, the old Cairo name, El Kahira, Arabic name for Mars, the conqueror, in a glass pyramid, and so I can't see any connection. Well, sometime when I came back to Glasgow, what I did was I signed up for all the courses I could at Glasgow University, and studied under Dr. Bill Manley, Angela McDonald, and David Lightbody get involved in this too. And I spent a lot of time also, when I started working at the Science Centre, I got to play with the planetarium, and me and Steve Owen get stuck into this, and we worked out what was going on with it. But basically, I took an interest in finding out, okay, why is Mars so important to the Egyptians? There's a lot of actually said, what is interesting about Horakhti as Mars is it's unquestionable. There are, as Newton and Parker say, there are few certainties in Egyptian astronomy, but the fact that Horakhti is Mars is one of those certainties. Because when the Greeks, they identify it right away, and they call it Horus the Red. So it's immediately identified. And the names of the other planets don't change, only Horakhti becomes Horus the Red. So the Greeks knew it. It's interesting in their commentary to planetary names. They also found that a name for Seth stood, but as an interesting description of it, it says the Ramesside text which follows the name of Mercury is also illuminated. Seth in the evening twilight, a god in the morning twilight. Now remember, Seth is the bad character. If you think about the Osiris myth and how he's murdered by his brother Seth, it's a common theme. You find it in Hamlet, you find it in Star Wars. Edward Arthur's a legend. He was murdered by his brother. But when he's in the eastern sky, when he's rising in the eastern dawn, he's a god. And in fact, in the myth, he actually helps with the birth of Horakhti, the birth of Horus, along with Venus, who plays the role of the Bennu bird. So here we have from one of the temples, one of the tombs rather, you've got all these astronomical deities. Here is Venus, the Bennu bird. Here is Seth, who is, a jackal-headed god. And of course, here's the three Horuses, often depicted as falcon-headed men standing on a boat with a star above their head, basically sailing across the sky. In fact, the 12th century, Amenemhet III had a poorly built pyramid. The Shua that collapsed, but they found his capstone. It was made of black granite. And on his capstone, he declares that his greatest pleasure was to watch Horakhti cross the sky. He was a keen astronomer, this guy. Okay, so we know what the situation with Mars is. Every now and again, you get a close approach. What makes Mars so interesting is the fact not so much that it's an elliptical orbit, it's an offset center orbit. It comes as close as 35 million miles, it gets as far as 63 million miles from us. When it's on the other side of the sun, at the far end of its orbit, it's obviously 240 million miles away from us. But then it comes as close as 35 million miles. So what that means is that sometimes Mars is very bright, very obvious, and very close approaches happen to happen in late August. When they do happen, they come in late August. The last one in 2003, Mars reached magnitude minus 3.2. Because it's closer to the sun, that extra energy, solar energy, stirs up the dust, and we end up with planet-wide dust storms, and that reflects back more light, so even brighter. So, when it's at the back end of its orbit, and you're looking for it in that morning light, it's a very, very faint, dim thing. If you're an astronomer, you know what you're looking for. It's a very difficult thing to see. But Over time, it grows to be big and bright, and it goes round the sky, and it comes to a number of oppositions, and it becomes invisible. And basically, there's texts that say, who is like Horakhti? No one. He's unique among the gods. Who is like the king? No one. He's unique among the people. And it's true, because the other planets, the outer planets, at least Jupiter and Saturn, they don't vary much in brightness, and they're pretty constant. But Mars disappears. Basically, it dies. It disappears for months and months, and then it comes back. And at times, it can be the brightest thing in the sky. I mean, it's shot took just this up the rest of me thankful back in 2003, and you can see just how obvious Mars is. So it occurs to me that you can't live in a place like ancient Egypt and not notice the planet Mars. Impossible. So it turns out that it played a very important role. And just to prove the point, here we are at that close opposition in 2003 at the Science Centre. Here's the IMAX, there's the full moon, there's a game on at Ibrox, and there's Mars. You can still see it. You cannot miss it. And again, if you're watching its movements across the sky, you're going to notice that it's coming from the east. And at one point, it's going to stop. In a few days, it's going to stay there, and then it's going to start to move back towards the east. It's going west, and move back towards the east. It stops again, and then it moves forward, going east again. Watching the sky night to night, you'll notice that the stars are moving west a degree at a time. But planets and the moon are going east, they're going that way. So you get a sky dance going on. So the planets make their own way around the sky on the ecliptic. Another odd thing about Mars, which becomes very important, is that it's inclined to the ecliptic plane, basically a reference plane for the Earth and solar system. It's inclined by 1.85 degrees. It can be above the ecliptic or below the ecliptic. And it turns out that in two oppositions, Mars is above the ecliptic. And the summer oppositions, it's below the ecliptic. That's a difference of 3.5 degrees, almost 4 degrees, which can make a difference. Now, we consider these temples what we call cult temples, which were the worship of the god, and basically the reinforcement of the state religion and kingship. They're all the same kind of design. They've got a big wall in front, they call the pylon. They've got a colonnaded courtyard here, which is open to the sky. And then we have several halls, and it gets dark, it's closed off, and we've got a sanctuary at the back, what's sometimes called the Holy of Holies. Now, people looked at these and thought, they're great telescopes. Egyptologists have said to me, this is the concept of coming out of the dark into the light. But as an astronomer, I like the idea of the light coming into the dark. When you get yourself at the back of the sanctuary there, you've got yourself a nice telescope, it's a nice observatory. However, it doesn't move, it's fixed in one point. So here we are on a visit to Edfu Temple. And you'll notice all the propaganda on the walls here. Here's the king smiting the enemies of Egypt before Horus. Up here in the corner, here's Horakhti. Here's the king bringing offers to Horakhti. You see him on the other side too. But the wall is about 160 feet high. But the odd thing about it is it's got a hole in the middle. So I thought, stupid question, what's the point of building a big high wall and leaving a hole in the middle? What's that hole for? These doors would be closed. So if you're the plebs on the outside looking in, all you can see up here, you see the sky behind you. And at times the Pharaoh will come out and make what we call this is the balcony of appearances, sometimes called the window of appearances. After he's done his ceremony, he will come up and appear to the people. From the inside looking out, you are in the courtyard, you're looking out, it's the same again, you've got a big high wall, these doors would be closed, but there's a gap up here. So what's that gap for? A lot of people looking at Karnak Temple, granted that it's pointing west, it's a bit of an odd one, it's a big temple, it's, the axis is over 500 yards, maybe 450 metres or so long. And it's as long at the back end as at the front end. And it's got several of these eyeballs. It's actually got 3 pylons. And they reckon he's looking at the summer solstice sunset. It's about almost 27 degrees north of west. So as far as the sun can get, you know. So at the opposite end is the temple of Horakhti, which is looking in the opposite direction on the same axis. And it's looking about 26, 27 degrees south of east of the winter solstice sunrise. Now, okay, that's fair enough. You can look at the astronomy and say, yeah, that's right, you'll get a winter solstice sunrise. But it seems kind of silly to me. You build a big temple like that and you use it for one day of the year. As an astronomer, this was my observatory, I would ask, what else can I see on that axis? What else can I see in that gap? What's the purpose of that gap? Now here we're looking west at Kermat Temple, and it's in the Theban Hills. The sun doesn't actually, you can't actually see the sun set there, set beyond it. So people are looking for something else. Maybe it's not just the sun. And also, you will also see the moon. Tiny, definitely, moon, something like that. You'll also see other stars, you'll see other things. But if you're in the sanctuary, looking out, you're looking up about 10 degrees. And everything else is covered over. The only thing you can see is this gap here. That part of the sky. And basically in the sanctuary, where they have the altar, they have the little statue of the god, and they do all the ceremonies and all the waving of incense about, what have you. You've got a ceiling that's covered in stars, you've got astronomical gods around the walls. And you can still see there's the original paint from New Kingdom. Blue sky background and gold stars. You got the background, little red dots on them. What I did notice when I was there, in the tombs that I saw, there's 2 types of stars. There's a star like that, and there's a star like that. So it's just a thought, are we talking about stars setting? Are we talking about stars rising? No. Why would there be 2 different types of stars? So we're looking at the heliacal horizon of Mars. Basically, Mars disappeared behind the sun for a while last year, and it reappeared round about the end of November. So around about now, a year ago. It made its first appearance. It was just bright enough to be seen above that glow of the sun, that area of the dew. And we're looking about 26 degrees south of east here. And I just checked this out recently and discovered, well, what do you know? Mars, the first appearance of Mars, and you know, that the death of Horakhti a little bit, would appear in that gap about 10 degrees up. Maybe that's why everything else is blacked out and you're just looking at that hole. You don't want the glare of the sun, you just want what's up there. And you're looking for that first appearance. Now, they also refer in the text to the mystery of Horus shining. They don't describe it as a planet. They don't think they knew what the planet was. They describe it as a star of gold, a lone star, a morning star. So here's me in my temple at Indrogium. This is the bar. And I got Matt Curry to take this shot just to illustrate the point. Mars was almost in opposition this particular year. I was just waiting. You can still see, you know, the sun is set, and here we are. Here's the dust light outside here. And I'm waiting for the first appearance. I'm waiting for that appearance of Mars. And there's me with my cake and my beer. The reason why is that all the beauty, all the lovely stuff was taken to the temples and distributed by the priests. And there's declarations in the temples to the people that say, thou shalt bring thousands of cakes and thousands of beer, and thousands of oxen. Hold the oxen. Homer Simpson would have loved this guy. So here's me with my cake and my beer at my temple, waiting for the appearance of the god. Now I couldn't find the shot. I went out and took the shot just to prove that we could do it. But there's one I took from Dublin, looking over Glasgow here, and not exactly the same, but the point is the sun is set, the sun is about 10 degrees below the horizon in the west, and over in the east here, the first thing to appear in the sky is Mars at opposition. That to me is the mystery of Horus shining. Why does it shine when all the other stars are extinguished? Why is it first to shine in the morning? Why is it last to disappear? Well, the first appeared at night, and it's the last thing to disappear in the morning. That's the mystery of Horus shining, because they wouldn't understand it with a planet lit by the sun. And when you get into the point, this was only taken a few days ago. Here, looking out the window, looking west, the sun is almost up, you know, the sky's gone blue, everything's washed out. Here's Mars, just out the window. It's just about up there somewhere. Well, that's it. Yes, you can see it. And that's what I took with the mobile phone. So that to me is the mystery of Horus shining. So we talk about the first appearance of Horakhti in our era. On the 12th of November last year, he popped out of the sun. And he stayed in the glow of the sun for about 5 or 6 months. And this is why I think they call him the dweller in the horizon. He sticks to low in the horizon, and he's still in the glow of the sun. It takes a long time to get out. Because remember, we talked about the offset orbit of Mars. It takes a long time to catch up with it. And for that reason, it's still in the glare of the sun until we can get well clear. So what was happening basically in July this year, mid-July, 13th thereabouts, Orion's coming back out of the duat again. Cyrus is rising again. In the temple ritual, we'll talk about the opening of the house ceremony. It's the next king in line. It's his son that comes to perform the ceremony. And in the myth, it's Horus, his son, who rescues his father and re-establishes the kingdom. He's basically going to the duat to get his father and set him up. So this is where it starts. Here's Horakhti, as Mars, lifting Orion out of the duat, right, of the bright area of the sky. And if you watch it day by day, you'll notice that Mars gets closer. You can do this on Stellarium. Set it up, pick a point, pick that date if you want, get Orion coming up in the dawn, and watch what Mars does. And he makes his way towards Taurus here. And here we are in September. He's right in the top of the picture here, almost cut out, but he's made good progress. He's got his father out of the duat, Cyrus. And what he's going to do, right now, he's past Taurus. He's doing his retrograde state. So he's moved towards the Orion, his father. He's lifted him up. And he's going to come to opposition on the 8th of December. This is up in Glasgow. And he's moved back towards Taurus again. And now there's going to be an interesting event happening on the 8th of December. The moon is going to pass in front of Mars. It's going to happen at 2 in the morning, finish about 3:30. So that's something you can watch out for. But what really interested me was when it gets to the 21st of December, when it gets to winter solstice, midnight, and you look out at the sky. You can do this on Christmas Eve, not much difference in it. Look at the sky. There he is. So what has Mars done? Mars has battled his way around the sky. He's gone against all the other gods. He's fought his battle of Seth. He's found his father in the duat. He's lifted up his father. He's set him on high, due south, and he's taken up his seat on his iron throne at the right side of his father, the west. Now stop me if you've heard this one before. I've always found the old jokes are best. This is a very old concept. What's happening at Edfu? Well, same thing, right? What happens before Orion gets to the meridian? Mars hits the zenith. Mars reaches the highest point it can in Egypt. And what do you say about the sacred place of Edfu? It's the sacred place where Horakhti defeats Apopus. Apopus being the demon god that tries to snatch the stars back, stop them rising. And he eventually escapes the clutches of the sunlight and he reaches the highest point in the sky. And that's how he gets to that's how he gets to be Lord of Heaven, Most High. Can't get higher than him. So if we look at where every temple is, it's almost 25 degrees north. It's a couple of minutes short. It's there for a reason. They didn't just build these temples there by accident, because that's where Mars comes to the highest point of the sky. It comes to the zenith of the temple. I think I noticed when I was visiting there back in 2001. If you get to the back of the temple, they've got the sanctuary at the back. They've got a little altar, and above it, there's a shaft. Now, the sun can't shine directly down there, because the sun doesn't get at the zenith at 25 knots, but Mars does. And what I think is going to happen at one point in time is, if you take a pan of water or a mirror and put it on the floor, the light of Mars is going to shine down that shaft into it. So effectively, God has entered the temple. A closer image of it. Here's the altar here. So that would be an interesting place to be at midwinter. And then basically he sets his father on high. He sets his father as high on the south as he can, on the meridian, and he takes up his seat on the right side of his father. I also had a look at the founding of the temple. It was already an old site. There was a New Kingdom temple there, and it was known to be a sacred site for a long time. But they're pretty certain that the foundation ceremony, the stretching of the cord, took place at 237 BCE, as I say, on the 23rd of August. And I'm pretty certain of this because remember we said that they had a fixed calendar of 365 days, and it wasn't until the Romans turned up. And one emperor tried it, and then the priests wouldn't do it, and eventually Caesar Augustus turned up and enforced it upon them and said, don't do this, your temples are shut. So he put the leap year in, right? So that working that back, they know that the date of the foundation of the temple is 237 BC on the 23rd of August. So I had a look at the sky and so there to see what was there, just out of interest. If he's doing it, obviously he's doing it at night, he's got to look at the northern stars. They don't necessarily say it's midnight, it's sometime. The axis of the temple is actually almost 2 degrees skewed to the west from due south. So it's not absolutely north and south. It's 1.75 degrees off, which is an interesting number. Remember, 1.85 degrees for Mars. So, have a look at it. But what's interesting, as the evening goes on, Mars would rise on the horizon here. Antares plays a role. Of course, Antares and Mars come together on occasions. That's very much the thing. And again, it happens in those gaps at Karnak and other temples. Not all temples are aligned to the ecliptic. They're all over the place. So now, Spanish archaeological expedition have identified seven different types of groups. And they're not going to do the same thing. Not long after, once you get into the early hours of the morning, you've got Sirius up with Orion. But the interesting thing about that date, the 23rd of August, 237 BC, is it's a close approach of Mars. Mars would be at its brilliant and best. Not very high, about 51 degrees up. You think about it, in the summer he's low, maybe 50 degrees, but in the midwinter he's high. Is that the So it would have been unmissable. It's interesting that they'd be doing the ceremony at that time. And the significance would not be lost on them, given the name of the place was the sacred place where Horakhti defeats Apollos. Okay, let's bring it up to date here. It'll soon be Christmas. Everybody enjoy Christmas. For some it's a nightmare. Don't want to go home and get killed for Christmas. Try this one. We're talking about the Egyptian New Year, the Horakhti rising of Sirius. The birth of Horakhti, the first appearance after he disappeared behind the sun for months and months. In 5 BC, and this is set at Bethlehem, 5 BC, Mars appears at the heliacal horizon of Sirius, and a little star cluster we call M44. Now we know M44. We call it a beehive. However, in 5 BC, the Greeks have another name for it. Anybody know? The manger. And that every Glasgow schoolboy girl knows a whale in a manger. So you've got this concept here. You've got the birth of an astronomical god that is going to go around the sky and establish a heavenly eternal kingdom. And it's got all these bits and pieces to the story. And here's the beehive cluster here, photographic Kendrogan on a drive. Probably a little group of stars. Can be seen with the naked eye, but certainly not in the dawn light. You need to know it was there. That's one thing about if they believe what the Bible stories say, that Herod didn't know where to look. Well, if it was an obvious big bright planet, they wouldn't need to ask. However, if you're an astronomer and you're looking for this, let's look at an astrological meaning to it. You're looking for this first appearance of Mars in the dawn light. It's very difficult to see. So we got death, we got resurrection, we got judgment, we got eternal life, a heavenly kingdom, a miraculous death. But don't forget his father was dead. So, a lot of magic was done there. We've got the tenets of Christianity here, probably Judaism too. Remember the pyramid texts are the oldest religious texts on earth, and all this stuff is in it. What would Father Jack say? Question might need to be relayed.
Magic has sometimes absolutely. See the thing about that, you recognise Mars, so is anybody actually dealing with it? Oh, so I don't know, because you get somebody in Egypt.
I'd love to somebody there. Actually, we've been on this for a couple of years. There was supposed to be a book, it's going to be delayed. There was a company in Hollywood that wanted to do this. They wanted to do a live event in the temple. And they wanted some big shots to out there. But they wanted to do a documentary and have a live event covering this, arrival of Horakhti at the temple sort of things. But that hadn't come up. There was too much money involved. So we're still trying to do it. We're still got to tell the story. You're asking if anybody's done it. This I do know. When I talk to Egyptologists, they don't know any of this. They don't even know that Horakhti is Mars. Horakhti is the god of kingship. And I find it absolutely astonishing that no Egyptologist has thought, you should check this out. The god of kingship for 3,000 years, nobody's bothered to look it up. I found out in the university library, and I timed it. It took me 15 minutes. Any first year student can find this out in 15 minutes. That took a little time to figure out what astronomy was doing. And I might get it wrong, but basically, I'm on this path and saying, right, okay, either Horakhti is Mars or it's not. And if it is, this is what it does. And it seems to tick a lot of boxes. So it needs investigating. What needs to happen is that Egyptologists need to get together with astronomers. And I've spoken to Egyptologists about the astronomy thing, and they throw their hands up and say, we don't know astronomy, we don't know. And they're honest enough to say, look, we need to do something to do with astronomy that can only take so far because we don't understand it. So fine. What we have learned about astronomers through the years in the ASD is they like beer. Things that Egyptologists do is take the astronomers out in a pub and start talking to them. And that's where it starts. But you could do with a nice project at the University of Glasgow to get the Egyptology department together with the astronomy department and start figuring this out. Because it's clear that Mars plays a very important role in Egypt that has not been looked at. So we've got to go there, folks. We've got to do that.
So is there any serious baby and Durban people? Oh, they're walking. Ah.
The Dogon tribe in Africa is they seem to be serious sort of companion stuff. I don't know if that's true or not. I heard a lot of arguments about this back in 1930, this was discovered. What we do know from Africa, these ideas come from looking at the sky for thousands of years. And they passed it down through myth and oral tradition. And they just knew, they didn't need to ask what the stars were doing, they knew, because they'd been living with them for thousands of years. So I don't know, maybe the answer is yes, they did know. How? I don't know. Okay.
I've heard that it's the Great Pyramid is a shaft in it, and it's a telescope because at the bottom of that shaft there's a big puddle where there's a big area with water, and then there's halfway up the pyramid there's a door, a landing. You can stand and say, I don't know, was it Mars, it was Sirius, you know. So if Sirius at a certain time of the year, it's light goes
Well, yeah,
down
I've looked at these so-called alignments. A problem
magnifies it, so it's like a telescope.
yeah, a problem with what they call the round correlation theory is there's nothing written on the pyramid to say what these shafts are for. They're completely sealed up. They're about 8 inches on the side. They go in about 6 feet and then they go up at an angle. And the two in the north are open. And one of the north shafts actually slips over the Grand Gallery. They designed a heck of a job to get that passage down the Grand Gallery. And that one was straight up. But the two in the south, the two that point south, ones that they reckon are aligned with Alnitak and Orion and Sirius, they're sealed. So they set a robot up one of the shafts, the Sirius shaft, and they found another couple of locks, copper handles on it. The problem with that is, okay, I looked at the alignments and said, okay, but there's nothing written to say that's what they're for. We might find out that these shafts take a sharp turn and go somewhere else. We don't know, you can't say definitively that is it. But what does happen is in summer, and you've got opposition on Mars, it can still hit that altitude. So you don't know if they are astronomically aligned. Sirius and Orion is a good choice, but maybe not, maybe it's something else. We don't know nothing at all. Charles.
The question, that was an interesting question about the Dogon and Sirius B. I know there's a theory from Burnham's Celestial Handbook, you know, the famous book, and what Robert Burnham Jr. said was that the chances are that the Dogon people had perhaps in the previous century been visited by a missionary that passed on the word that Sirius actually had a companion, and that had gone into the legends. And by 1930, that was known to office that Sirius B was known, but and that's supposed to be a missionary that visited and realised in Sirius' day, missionary passed on, well, Sirius B's got a companion, so that's quite a likely answer that it was a missionary that passed it on, but that the information had been lost. And the other discovered in 1930. That's the most likely. But I don't think there was any way that that could be detected without astronomical equipment.
It's too hard to set, and you can't do that. I like this because there's no aliens involved in this. This is just sky for years and years, and that's just them trying to make sense of it. Sorry, you had a question.
Oh, yeah, we're talking about, this is also the Egyptian can see Mars. That's not right. Well, how is it that Egyptians didn't know about Mars? How was that called if they didn't know what Mars was or what the orbit was?
Right, I'm not right, thank you.
Right, you see the Egyptians didn't know about Mars.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, we got this thing to look at Mars. So how did they actually build that to look at Mars when they didn't know what Mars was? There's been other reasons why they built this certain gap that I don't believe.
So it's Egyptologists
They didn't know it was a planet.
So remember, the importance on the sky is Sirius. That brings the flood. So whatever follows and precedes that, they'd be interested in. But if you're living in the desert watching the sky, you notice that Mars does something nothing else does. Basically, he dies, he disappears, and then he comes back to be the brightest thing in the sky, and then the highest thing in the sky. When Jupiter comes close,
And would it not be wrong about then?
yeah,
I didn't.
okay, still no, it needs to be investigated. I mean, feel free.
Yeah.
Take that one.
It's a hard copy would be some kind of text or writing on walls saying this is.
They did know about Mars. I think the confusion is that they didn't realize it was a planet. They thought it was a star or a god, or but they didn't. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing to think that they built whole huge temples to look for specific objects in the sky at specific times of the year. And we spend some of the time taking out smallish telescopes to look at the odd thing in the sky, maybe once a month or so. We're really weather dependent. But the fact that they built such huge amounts of their society around these it's insane. I didn't know a lot of this is very new. It's very interesting.
Times looking at sky with a matter of life and death. Now, there's no indication in here they're doing this for astronomical reasons. It's purely religious reasons. And they use it to regulate the calendar, the kingship, and it's a system of law and order too. That natural law, the law of what is right, it's the truth and justice and all the rest of it. It's in the sky. You can do what you want on Earth, but the stars have got their own plans. They stick to their own plan, they don't change.
I have a small question. The 5 days at the end of the year, is that a 5-day bender or a 1-day bender? Do you think? The new year. So there's 360 days, and then their 5-day buffer around the new year. Do you think that was a 5-day party, or was it a 1-day? It's a 5-day bender. Excellent.
But there's another interesting thing about coming up. If you miss this time round, the next opposition on Mars does something interesting because it passes over the top of the line and it's heading towards cancellation Cancer. It's basically, there's a story about Horus going to see his mother, and Horus didn't know his mother when he was young. So his mother doesn't identify him. So he heads to the temple to see his mother. His mother doesn't identify him, and he's rejected, he's sent away. And basically there's a big battle at the temple, and battle back. Then he comes forward again, and then she recognises him as his true son, and that all God. So that's what's going to happen next time around, because he's going to make his move towards Sirius, and then he's going to do his retrograde thing and move back, and he's stopped, and then he's going to move forward again. And Herodotus describes a scene that happens at a temple in Paprinus, which is in the Delta, which is north of Egypt. And basically they've got crowds of people with sticks and stones and what have you, and they have a big battle. There's a group of people that represent Horus, and they come forward. There's a big fight outside the temple with doors are closed, and they all bash in each other's skulls, and then they go away, and then they come back again, and they kind of reenact this thing. And eventually they all end up in the temple having a big party. But that's an interesting little astronomical connection as well, I think.
Sounds like a night out in Glasgow.
I'll never hear you, but
I had a question just about what would you say is the most interesting thing that Egyptian technology is that we kind of learned from and adopted in the present day?
Are we talking about the original ideas?
Yeah, just anything about the methodology or the ideas or anything like that.
I don't know, I think it's a matter of time. If you've looked at the sky for 3,000 years, you try and make sense of it. And it's just interesting that these ideas that they basically had them 3,000 years before the Church of Rome. And when Coptic Christianity took over in Egypt, it took over very quickly because it fitted in with the religion. The worship of Isis was adopted very quickly. That's the Virgin Mary, and that was exported to Rome and all around the Mediterranean. And Father and all the rest of it ticks all those boxes. So I could see why it would move very quickly. Well, I find it's interesting going back to the origin of those ideas. They're back in Egypt, and it seems to be nothing but an astronomical myth. So that kind of opens a can of worms, you know. So I had a discussion with brother Guy Consul Manuel many years ago at Planetarium, and he took away the article, and we kept in touch for a wee while. I've got to get back to him. He's one of the guys I'd like to interview and say, right, what do you think about these ideas, these concepts that came forward?
Thank you.
Anything else?
I'm just thinking about mass, was she not the goddess way the human soul?
That's correct, yeah. Mat is the goddess of justice. She basically weighs the human heart when they. And it's Horus who takes the dead king to Osiris for judgment. Osiris does the judgment, but the goddess Mat, which represents true father of justice, basically weighs a feather against the heart of the person. And this is possibly where the term a heavy heart comes from. You know, basically, if your heart is heavier than the feather, that's you. There's a big demon monster that chews you up. That's it, you're not going to heaven, you don't get it. And they have what we call a negative confession, and it gets I have not let the hungry man starve, I have not let the thirsty man go without water, I have not this, I have not that. It's what they call a negative confession. And it's all kind of propaganda. So you see, again, it fits into modern religion too. You know, these ideas have been around a long time.
I think we should thank Chris again. Wonderful talk.
There's a mom and dad in Hawaii. Still up there. If I'm going to the major, they're going to be catch up with that one.
And the 8th of December is the moon rotation of Mars.
It's but it comes to opposition. The moon is going to pass in front of it. It's 2 in the morning until about 4 in the morning. There's an article in the Sky Night magazine on how to cover it. Basically, you need to stay up. I haven't looked to see if that's a Saturday. It's a working day.
There's very big, I've got some stunning views.
It's a one-day choice. The occupational lines, so perfect.